Since the new season of ReZero will feature a new set of villains who we haven't seen before, I'd like to set the tone now and explain how strong they are. For those who don't know, I'm speaking about Batenkaitos and Roy Alphard, the Sin Archbishops of Gluttony, and two villains who will be extremely prominent both in this season and in multiple seasons beyond this. So, I thought it'd be best for me to give you an introduction to how strong these people are, and to do this, we'll detail their abilities, strength, speed, and overall feats to truly hammer home how ludicrously strong these people are. As always, if you like these sort of videos, please remember to like and subscribe. Of course, there'll be spoilers for later on within the series, so if you don't like that, then please leave. And with that being said, let's get into it. Firstly, to start off with their abilities and how the two brothers use them distinctly, both Lion and Roy possess the authority of gluttony. Through touching their targets with their hands and sometimes their feet, the brothers are capable of interfering with the souls of the target, stripping them of their names, memories, or sometimes even both, while taking advantage of the conceptual nature of authorities to bypass the typical defenses which Old Laguna has over the soul and directly interfere with it. By eating the name of the target, they are forgotten by everyone in the world, with even the actions which they have done being erased, as we see with Rem when she is eaten by the white whale. And in turn, when your memories are eaten, you forget everyone, and you will be forever incapable of remembering them until either of the siblings choose to release your name from the stomach of souls. But it is what they do with these names and memories which makes them deadly in combat. To begin with, Lion and Roy have the same access to the same memories, yet they use them differently. Upon gaining your name, both siblings gain access to the abilities the original user had. However, they are not told how to use them or how much mana they should put into these abilities to properly make them capable of using it to the highest extent. However, Lion and Roy are combat prodigies, which allows Lion to immediately copy Emilia's ice brand arts and use them to a far better extent than Emilia herself was capable of, despite only having recently gained access to the ability. And in turn, when the user's memories are eaten, Lion and Roy gain access to martial arts which the person wielded, even down to how they flowed mana across their body to make use of the flow method. This allows them to essentially copy the martial arts of everyone who they've ever eaten before, and use them just as well, if not better, than the originals were capable of. Despite having the same ability, Lion and Roy use them quite differently. Lion is somebody who focuses more on hand-to-hand combat and raw martial arts, to the extent that he's perfected not just the martial arts within his own memories, but every single martial arts which has ever existed to the highest peak through his raw talent, which also allows him to use the best memories for the best situation and each situation he's in while he wants to, whenever he wants to, especially given that he's fighting seriously. And in turn, Roy focuses more on magic. Rather than using multiple memories at once like Lai does, Roy focuses on perfecting his dagger techniques, making them just as good as Lai's, and makes use of magic, cycling through his martial arts one by one at high speeds rather than combining them into a single ultimate martial art as Lai has. And through this, Roy gains versatility which Lai himself chooses not to have, although again, this can be attributed to his lack of need to rather than his lack of capability. So in other words, aside from people like Reinhard and Reed, when it comes to raw skill in martial arts, there's nobody who is better than the two, and this idea is shown quite explicitly during their fights. To start off with Roy, during his fight against Julius and Ricardo, two opponents who, according to the author, are comparable to Garfield individually as of Arc 5, something which is also seen when Ricardo and Garfield go to fight Kurgan. Neither of them are capable of landing a clean hit on Roy. Every single attack they do is either deflected, dodged, or parried, and Roy does so without even trying. It's noted that they couldn't even get Roy to sweat in the slightest, and even Julius' strongest attacks are casually dodged. Furthermore, when Julius attempts to corner him with his spirits, Roy instantly shuts him down with Twilight Mage, one of the memories which he's eaten, and counters them all immediately. If not for Ricardo taking the blow and losing an arm as a result, Julius himself might have died. It's also worth noting that Lai and Roy are typically not fighting to kill their opponent. Instead, they're fighting to see something interesting so they can eat your name and memories. This is more true for Lai than Roy, but the same principle still applies, and we see this during Lai's fight against Otto, Felt, the White Dragon skills, and more. During this engagement, not a single one of them is capable of landing a clean hit on Lai, and the only times which they actually do anything of worth to him is when Lai is holding back and playing around. Yet, even despite this, Lai is capable of instantly seeing through Beatrice's Shamak in seconds, so having an attack which Otto believes is capable of killing Garfield or Elsa, and quite blatantly shows overall superiority to all of the opponents who he's fighting. Even while caught off guard and crippled by nausea, Lai is still capable of tanking attacks from the Star Staff, or surviving them I should say, which is fueled by mana from both Felt and Beatrice, something which is capable of even pestering Volcanica, somebody who has a Dragon Halo which is specifically designed to protect him from magical attacks. In other words, Lai and Roy are complete monsters. To put into perspective how impressive it is for Roy to beat up both Julius and Ricardo at the same time, Julius and Ricardo are evaluated to be equal to Garfield individually. Garfield, who is stated to be the strongest member of the Emilia camp at the time of Peastella, which directly puts him above somebody like Emilia. And also, Garfield is evaluated to be comparable to somebody like Old Wilhelm. Old Wilhelm, who is capable of fighting a zombie Theresia, and that same zombie Theresia is evaluated to be comparable to Kurgan. In other words, this means that Roy is fighting off the equivalent of two people who are stronger than Emilia, two people who are roughly equivalent to zombie Theresia, two people who are actually comparable to Kurgan, two people who are obviously comparable to Garfield, at the same time without showing the depth of his abilities, without using most of his martial arts, without using most of his magic, and also not trying and not going for the kill. And it's also noted that this severely holding back Roy is actually evaluated by Ricardo to be comparable, if not slightly weaker than Zerestia. And this is impressive because Zerestia is somebody who is capable of, in the REM being capable of fighting Hannibal, one of their four strongest, without being immediately overwhelmed and blitzed, showing at least some low form of relativity. And this means that Roy in base is an absolute monster, even while holding back. And Lai is just as impressive, if not more so. During the Tower of the Dead loop, Lai is capable of killing Shola in one-on-one combat. Shola is somebody who, within the Gluttony route, is capable of killing Garfield in Arc 5 without taking any injuries, shooting hell snipes which are so quick that not even Emilia can properly guard against them at a distance. Yet, Lai is capable of beating her despite the fact that the fight changed places multiple times and it was a long drawn out fight. Shola herself is impressive because Beatrice took one look at her and thought that it would take everyone ganging up against her at the same time in order to potentially be capable of beating her. Furthermore, it's consistently implied that Shola is superior to the entire group on her own. In addition to this, the author himself says that Shola is only one step below somebody like Cecilus, putting her roughly equal or comparable to somebody like Arakia with Muspel. Yet, Lai is still capable at beating her at what we can presume is her preferred distance. After this, he then goes on to beat Julius and kill Ram, but it's already a given seeing as he's capable of overwhelming Shola. Later on in this arc, we see Lai is capable of beating Ram with two shackles unleashed in a single blow. This two-shackled Ram is capable of overwhelming a fully transformed Garfield, and is stated to be capable of beating him at around half her strength during this state. Furthermore, we see that Ram is actually capable of easily outpacing Roswell, shattering all of his bones in his hand and almost killing him if not for the fact that she's in love with him. Yet, while Ram was fighting Lai the second time, he stated on a multitude of occasions that Lai was dealing with her easily, laughing at her while they're fighting. To put this in perspective, Roswell is capable of, in Arc 7, keeping up with Olbart, the third-ranked Divine General, while also protecting Garfield at the same time. And in terms of close quarters combat, he should be around comparable to Garfield in Arc 8 before he gets another power boost while he fights Mesorea. Both Lai and Roy should be far superior to Speaker, somebody who is stated to be roughly on par with Kafma, who during his fight against Garfield ends up shattering his skull and forcing him to have another power boost in order to defeat him. We see quite blatantly that Lai is superior to Lewis when she does have all of her memories, this same Lewis who by herself was capable of overwhelming Emilia and Ram at the same time, and given that Ram did not intervene at the start of the fight, would have immediately killed Emilia in a few moments, and none of this is even taking into account Lai's abilities with Merged Eclipse. By activating Merged Eclipse, Lai merges both Lunar and Solar Eclipse. Solar Eclipse, which is an ability which allows him to copy the physical form of anyone who he is eaten, stacking that on top of his mastery of Lunar Eclipse to become an entity who is so durable that no holy sword can pierce into him. Somebody who knows all types of magic and can use them freely, capable of teleportation far further than he's usually capable of. And it's stated quite blatantly within the web novel that there is nobody who is as skilled in so many aspects to such an extent as Lai that will ever be born in the next 1,000 years. This Lai is capable of easily overwhelming a 3-shackled Ram, this same Ram who is stated by Lai to be stronger than regulars, and forces her into her 5-shackled state. It's important to note that even when she does gain her 5-shackled state, she continues to use wind magic in order to alter her physical speed, throw off her presence and disorient Lai, something which she does because she acknowledges that even in that state, she is still somebody who cannot actually land a hit on Lai using sheer physical strength and speed, and that is due to his mastery of all martial arts. In other words, you need attack power like Reed in order to overwhelm Lai conventionally, and even when Reed does give him a beatdown, Lai recovers in literal seconds and he fights like he was never injured in the first place. Despite being held back by their tendency to not take fights seriously, neither brother are people to be joked with, and Roy displays this blatantly during Arc 9, performing one of the greatest gauntlets in history, easily overwhelming Base Ram, who is capable of keeping up for a short period of time with Ricardo and Wilhelm, with her needing to be saved multiple times by Petra, easily overwhelming Meili's Mob Beast, which include the Hungry Horse King, who quite literally can adapt to having its entire torso blown off and heal it completely, overwhelms Dolterra, who Rom thinks you need somebody on Prime Wilhelm's caliber to take down, beats down quite literally every single person who tries to take him on. He survives a hit from the Star Staff, he survives a hit from Garfield. Keep in mind, this is the same Garfield who was tearing off pieces of Elsa's face every single time he made contact with her, and he debuted a new type of eclipse called Eclipse Binary, which forces people to relive their worst memories, combined with memories they don't remember, or in simpler terms, memories of agony. This essentially forces everyone to experience quite literally crippling pain, and he can stack that on top of his capability to summon the Black Snake, one of the 4 great mob beasts from his shadow, something capable of, at full power, destroying one of the 4 great nations. To make it even more impressive for you, when Lion Roy are stated to not be capable of being cut by holy swords, this means that Wilhelm's twin blades, Astrea and Trias, which are capable of chipping away at Volcanica's dragon scales, cannot pierce their skin. This also means that the sheer cutting power of Cecilus's dream sword, Masayume, cannot pierce their skin either. When I say these guys are monsters, I really mean it. Furthermore, according to Tappe, excluding Cecilus, Lai is capable of having an even fight with all of the divine generals at once, jumping him should he get serious. So having Lai and Roy at any position other than your top 2 or 3 archbishops is ridiculous, and one can even make an excellent case for Lai and Roy being capable of killing Regulus, given that they have knowledge of his weakness through having access to Subaru's memories. In conclusion, Lai and Roy are complete monsters. An extremely strong case can be made for Lai being amongst the top 10 strongest characters in rezero at his peak, with Roy being in the top 15, and anyone who disagrees with this is either biased or simply not reading the story properly. As always, if you like these sorts of videos, please remember to like and subscribe. This has been Shinra, and I'm out.